I was actually talking to our buddy, Dr. Smiley and Ken, and we came up with a little theme for this small portion of it. So I couldn't play music because there'd be a problem with copyrights and maybe YouTube and what have you would show down. And you'll see why I'm more of an actor and maybe a motivator than this. But here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry, keep smiling. In every life, we may have some trouble, but when you worry, you make it double. Don't worry, keep smiling. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ain't got no cash, ain't got no style, ain't got no one to make you smile. Don't worry and keep smiling. Because when you worry, your face will frown, and that will bring everybody down. So don't worry, keep smiling. How's that for an intro, brother? Brian, did I lose you?
Type I cannot hit things fast enough. I'm I'm laughing so hard I can't reach my screen. This is perfect. This is
That's
perfect.
all right. That's all right. We're gonna be doing this a few times tonight, man. It's so great to meet you.
Uh,
Um, yeah, I mean, you think about it. Don't worry, keep smiling. She said the ABCs, and I was almost going to, always be closing because that was my old sales days. But I
right.
mean,
She flipped the script.
happiness is a choice.
Mm.
Happiness is a choice. And why not just be happy? It's really hard. I actually had one of my top managers. He was a perpetual smart. I'm gonna watch my language on this just out of respect for Ken in the audience, but he was a smart
Alec.
yeah, smart aleck, yeah. And people would say they would say to him, they say, it takes 18 muscles in your face to smile and 82 to frown. And he would say, well, blank off, I'm working out.
We'll call him a special zebra.
A special zebra, yeah. And so, but Ken also talked about, one of the programs that I'm doing, and of course we're not going to be selling anything here. I'll put my phone number and then my Facebook link in chat. People can talk about it later, but how many times do we have a problem? How and then how do we address those problems? How do we go about that? Are we ever in a situation where we say, "Can I talk to your supervisor?" And without getting litigious or what have you, sometimes if we just had a good friend that maybe had a legal firm or a cousin or something else like that, they get a letter, all of a sudden they change. So one of the things that I've been doing and I've been talking to Ken about is a couple programs. We're not going to put any names in, but I'm with a 52-year-old company, and what we did is we brought the even playing field. So many times we'll have a situation. It's kind of like insurance. We both want to, because I've worked with small business. I've been a small business owner since 1992. I'm what you call, I think Mark Cuban coined it, but I'm going to use it. I'm unemployable. I am not a W-2 guy, and there's so many struggles that entrepreneurs go through. And with these programs that we have, we're located in all 50 states. We've been around for 52 years. We're protecting 4.5 million Americans right now. It's kind of like insurance, but it's the opposite. When you think about insurance, you never want to use it. You don't want to have an accident. You don't want to have a health situation. You don't want to, have a major catastrophe, a flood, or what have you. Um, our forms of insurance are twofold, both where we can. I probably call over there 3 to 5 times a month. Just and we have I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. We have the biggest law firm and I can call them as many times as I want to, and it's so ridiculously affordable. It's about 1/5 of the cost of my car insurance, which I'm not a terrible driver, but that just kind of gets it in perspective. But they protect everything. So, matter of fact, we're going to be working with several veterans organizations because when a small business owner opens up, there's so many questions, right? How do I form my company? Do I do an LLC? Do I do an S corp? Do I do a C corp? Am I a sole proprietor? By the way, don't be a sole proprietor. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to throw that one on the top of the chain here, on the top of the table. Then when you're hiring employees, how do you set them up? What's their structure? Are they 1099? Are they W-2? Do we offer them benefits? Do we not offer them benefits? Do we have a handbook? All the different things that goes into it, and how does that relate to keep smiling? Well, if my head's focused on problems and minutia and other things, I can't be focused on building my dreams. I can't be focused on, taking care of my employees, having a proper structure, all of those things. Because if my head's off, it's harder to smile. It's harder to be happy when I'm dealing with problems. What about, identity? There's a lot of, companies out there that, like with my, several of my credit cards, they'll give me a warning or they'll give me an alert, or I've got some credit cards, or some other services where if somebody puts an inquiry. But, what about a buddy of mine he was in another state, he was driving over, he filled gas because this particular town has such low gas prices. And then he got a phone call, and he kept getting pinged in, pinged in. He goes, and he told his wife, he said, "Somebody's trying to get a hold of me." And then they said, "Are you trying to buy 12 iPhones in Singapore?" He goes, "I don't even know where the hell Singapore is." And so, as opposed to just having those types of things, one of the things I love about, who I'm dealing with is that immediately you'd have private investigators on the deal. I know two ladies, one had this with our firm, and they were on it like white on rice. They were amazing and everything else. I know another woman that got her identity hacked, and it cost her a couple $1,000s to fly out to California, everything else. But the biggest thing, here's a stupid question. Is anybody here using social media? Well, if you are, you have a 46% chance to get hacked. So I'll drop my name in the chat, and actually I'm gonna even put out my but actually I'm gonna take my phone number off of there. Let's be protective there. And then so if somebody wants to get a hold of me, they can instant message me. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here to talk about how do we keep smiling? How do we keep happy? Well, we can't eliminate problems. I remember there was a great Buddhist leader, Daisaku Ikeda, and he was encouraging some young men. And then they said, I'm having this issue, I'm having this issue, I'm having this issue. And he goes, I can take you to a place where there's thousands of people and nobody has any problems. And then he took him over and he took him to a cemetery, because to be alive, we have, some people call them problems. I like to call them opportunities, because, what life throws at us, what comes to us is all just opportunities. People say, do you have problems? I said, no, I just have solutions. Because if I look at what the problem is, then I'm not going to get out of the mud. And I think, the first thing is, what is our attitude to it? A smile. I love it. I met with my dentist the other day, and I said, I can tell you a lot of things about a smile. I said, a smile is the most economical way to improve your looks. Now, I don't know if I should be saying that in your office, because I know how much money I spent. But if without, it's like there was somebody earlier that was talking about being in Vietnam or underworld countries, people that don't have the ability to spend a lot of money on dental work or other work or what have you. Well, it's real simple. Just do this. And once you do that, it creates a reaction. Somebody can be really, really upset. You just come over to them and then you smile. And it's really hard to stay mad. It's really hard to stay mad. I met Ken, my God, it's been 15 years ago. And I know he's talked about the struggles and when he was out there and he was doing all these events and not necessarily generating any revenue. But what I fell in love with was his passion for what he wanted to do with the world, and then also what he was wanting to do with nonprofits. And so that's the guy that I fell in love with. We later had the same hairstyle. Matter of fact, I think he threw me on the ball with his beautiful book. But So going back to the one thing that I was going to, somewhat present, whether it's, opening up a business, whether it's, an average family, you're going through divorce, there's just so many things that you don't want to spend three, four, or $500 on, or sometimes there'll be a little situation and, okay, I can get mired in the muck and everything else. I can ask to speak to a supervisor, or I could just go and say, hey, look, if you don't want to handle this, I'm just going to see what my rights are. I make a phone call, or actually I've got an app, and then boom, then they get a letter. All of a sudden people act a little bit differently. And again, I don't want to be litigious, but I also don't want to be taken advantage of. Most importantly, I don't want to be thinking about anything negative. I want to just think about results and positivity. So I'm going to let somebody else handle it. And then there too, when we go into our identity, that's the biggest thing the FTC is talking about. When we get mucked up into all of those things, then then we can't really do the things that we want to do to change the world. Like, one of the things that I'm building out is the Mr. KleanFoundation. And if you look at my last name, it's spelled Klein. By the way, there's a little backstory with that. I launched a company in the fall of 2019, and it's called Ultra Soap Arizona. And I remember I was passing out business cards, and it said Dino Klein, right? And then they go, "Oh, you're Mr. Clean." And then it just stuck. So later COVID hit, we pivoted to again, I didn't get mucked down into the problems or what society was doing, and we're not going to necessarily get into that, but I pivoted. I said, okay, what are my other opportunities? Well, we're a service disabled veteran owned small business, so we did a lot of government supplies. We also educated people and did different things with what was going on, and got some good information out there. So it's about, if I was mucked into the problems I couldn't alter. And, I actually was just a customer of these programs since the 90s. And I cannot tell you how many times that I've reached out. I mean, it doesn't matter what the subject is. How many people have a will? 80% of people don't. They do that for free. They do a bunch of stuff. And again, I didn't want this to be a pitch or anything else, but we don't want to wait till we have problems. We want to be proactive, and especially if we can do it very, very affordably. Ken said you might want to open it up. I don't know if there's any question or answers, or if you have anything for me. And hopefully that didn't seem like a pitch, but it's like the two. So some of the areas that I'm really looking at is insurance agents, because they're already providing maybe dental, health, property, casual, life insurance. We can provide benefits to their employees, and it's just a voluntary benefit, so it doesn't cost the employer any money. And then I ran into a situation the other day, and somebody said to me, "Well, we've got a lot of minimum wage employees," and I said, "The people that make the least get taken advantage of the most." I mean, I'm not Donald Trump or Mark Cuban. I don't have, so I went on both sides of the aisle on that one. I don't have lawyers on staff, but I actually do. I don't,
But
and I don't want to
you
spend a
said
bunch of
something.
money.
You said something really good that I think works for a lot of entrepreneurs about keeping the smile going
Yeah.
is being prepared. And one of the things that you're referencing, and I think that people can listen to, is not only just be prepared in your life, but be prepared for challenges that'll come your way. And
Mhm.
just the same as you would have a lawyer or a copyright attorney or to protect your business, gather people around you,
Mm,
that you trust to prepare
right.
for the challenging times. I mean,
Absolutely.
and we've got like 1 minute left before our next guest is available and waiting for him to hop on. But I think,
Cool. And I want to add to what you just said, because that
thank
is
you.
so brilliant for those people that are out there. What you said is so brilliant. By the way, if you're young, if you're beginning your entrepreneurial journey, or you're doing anything else, if anybody's telling you that you can't, it won't, it doesn't, it couldn't, don't walk, run away. And then also just be very, very wise. If you're around Brian, if you're around Ken, if you're around the other people I've seen on this, be around those types of people, and then do yourself a favor, hit mute. Don't tell anybody else, because they might try to pee on your parade. And unless you got an umbrella, it's just not going to work out.
Yeah, like the good doctor who started off this day, that we elevate and elevate
Yes.
yourself and be around other people that elevate you. and that'll protect you from the tough times. Because I don't see our next guest yet. One
That's all
second.
right.
Yeah, Dr. Brody. So I don't see Dr. Brody yet. So we'll just keep riffing on this. But I know that, and thanks for bringing this up, Mr. Klean. I can see that. I can see that. And
Oh, wait,
if you
we could say for my Spanish speaking, Senor Limpio, but that's product. That's infringement on Procter and Gamble. I can't say that one. I actually just saw mi novia, estás en Cartagena, Colombia. Mi novia, mi princesa. Hola, te amo mucho.
but I love this, and I think what we'll do if Dr. Brody's not on yet, because I don't see him. If he is, Amy, please let me know. But we'll riff on this a little bit.
Sure.
One of the things that you talked about, protection in our lives. We've got a beautiful smile, and as the other speaker said, we've got a beautiful story, and we can learn to elevate ourselves. And life happens. Life happens.
Right.
And there's going to be challenges that we come up against that we aren't prepared for. And entrepreneurs like yourself and me and Ken, we want to fix everything. We want to solve it ourselves. And we kind of get a kick out of solving it ourselves, but we weren't meant to. So I did this thing with my brothers, and that I trust. And you got sisters from other misters, you got brothers from other mothers. You learn, you have a conversation. And like you're talking about, you have a lawyer in your corner, not because it's happening, but before it happens. So in the same way,
Oh, yeah.
you get a trusted brother, and you have that conversation that you can go to them anytime before stuff happens.
Exactly. I jokingly say a lot of times I would much rather ask for forgiveness than for permission, just so I can blaze a trail. But in business, we need to be careful. To echo on what you said, which was perfect, if I'm left to my own devices, I can grow that much. I can study, I can learn, I can read, I know a good book publisher, Ken Rochon, and Perfect Publishing. So there's a lot of books out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I one of the things that I think that has helped me and
Go
that
ahead,
helped me
everyone.
build in my journey was that I didn't have to be the author. I didn't have to be the one that was absolutely right about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. I've always been open to other people's, but the right advice. Now, if you're broke and going to bankruptcy, don't give me financial advice. If you're on your third, I had a guy work for me. He said, "Listen, you don't understand women. Now I'm on my fourth marriage, and let me tell you what to do." So I listened to everything he said to do, and I figured if I just do the opposite, it would probably work out real well. So, but we got to be open to listening to other people. There's a
Mm-hmm.
proverb called "blue deeper than the blue," like the indigo plant. So if you take Brian's knowledge, like the indigo plant, if you take the dye from the blue and put it into the blue, it becomes a much deeper blue. So if Brian has all of his knowledge, then he adds what Ken has to share, what Dino has to share, what Mrs. England, what she was inspiring. Oh my goodness. Miss England, yeah. I mean, the ABCs. If she's still here, thank you. You definitely amplified us,
She
so
did.
we appreciate that.
And I think you're pointing to something. It's that I don't know that we've had that I haven't talked yet, but this is the perfect hour for those that are listening on YouTube. Comment, chat, give us some love, because we're talking about that intuition, that right here, that you know if
Right.
it's right or if it's not. And when you're communicating, when you're sharing your smile with people, you may not get a lot of people smiling back, but keep smiling anyhow. And if somebody wants to offer you advice or offer you some suggestions, if you know it's not right, give them a smile. Thank you very much, and move right on.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that with me, Brian. And then but what you've been sharing was good, but that wasn't a good example. Thank you for sharing with me, Mr. Negativity. But peace out. Thank you. I really appreciate because somebody's actually sharing something with you, especially excuse me, as entrepreneurials, especially those you just starting. some of your biggest, naysayers are the people that love you the most because they're worried because they don't have courage. They don't have the courage to step out of the box and do something, create something. So they're
Mhm.
not saying it because now some people are hateful and haters got a job to do and they're not unemployed. But most of the time, I think when entrepreneurs are starting or just people in life, they're not giving you that advice because they hate you or they want you to fail. It's just where their mindset is at. So thank them, like you
Mhm.
said,
Mindset.
because yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I really appreciate you, caring enough to share that with me.
It was like we started off today with the mindset that everybody is everybody is helping solve somebody else's problem, that we're all here and capable of helping other people, and we get to elevate the conversations. And then
Yeah.
we were talking about being able to be authentic and connect with people and do what you can to help that other individual and to serve greatly. And then we were talking about connecting and then following up with people and connecting and reminding yourself of what your mission is, reminding yourself of who you are, and letting that smile just penetrate everybody. And then we were talking about this is just so beautiful how to all wove together. We're talking about that smile is sharing a story, and there's a
Mhm.
story behind the smile. And if we can find out the story behind the smile, and we can share
Mm.
more of that,
Oh,
and then like we were talking about the ABCs, if there's something keeping our smile down and keeping our story down, then we can learn to break through those chains and be reconnected. And this was just so far.
yeah. There's smiles, and the other one that's really big for me is hugs.
Ooh,
So
tell me more.
yeah. So matter of fact, when I was married, my wife was half Japanese. So I used to tell people that when I got home, I would take my shoes off half the time, if she was there. But her mother, because she was from a relationship and she was from a situation to where there wasn't a lot of love and a lot of hugging. And I tell you what, she is a totally different person now because I mean she is a major, major hugger. So we talked about smiles being contagious. Here's another one. Try this at home. When you go over and hug somebody, and then try it again. Now here's the key is when you hug them, try it normally. Normally we go like this to like this. Try this. Go a little bit to the side like that. It feels a little bit awkward almost, but once you make a connection, it's cool. And then you're going heart to heart. And then just kind of hold it for a second or two and then see the difference. Try that. I want everybody that's listening to try that experiment. I mean, I know it's really, really late in the East Coast, but just try that. Don't tell somebody you're doing it either, but just try that. And then you'll notice a difference because it develops that connection, kind of like our smiles are creating a connection. The hugs are creating a connection as well. And so for our Spanish speaking community, that's your sonrisa and abrazos. I think my novia is still on the line. I don't know, but I'm wearing my Colombian hat. There we got the Colombian hat. Viva la Cartagena. I mi amor. So she doesn't
Perfect.
understand most everything. Mi amor no comprende mucho mi palabras. She didn't understand anything I said, but she loves my heart and she loves my smile, and I love her heart and her smile. So everything else will work out.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. We got for 5 minutes in, and this is where we wing it. This is where
Actually, somebody said, do you have your presentation ready? Do you have your slides ready? I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but I didn't bring any slides. I did. I don't hope I don't make people mad, but I did bring my Pacers cup. But we do have Game 5 later tonight, and I was
nice.
in Indianapolis from 92 to 17. And I'm going to be bragging and self-serving by saying I only missed 3 home playoff games in 25 years.
Okay.
So, but let's just have a good game, and let's all be friends when it's over.
Let's go. I do see that Dr. Brody Miller is on. So let
Oh,
me,
fantastic.
yeah, we're gonna dance with this. So Dino, thank you.